We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon.
Yo, yo. What's good, people? Hotep Jesus, we back.
I am
that Hotep Jesus dude. That Hotep Jesus dude.
You already know what time it is. Hold on.
That Hotep Jesus dude.
Get my levels right here. That's good. All right, let's put that down. 1 2 1 2. Let's take a look here. Let's close that. Okay, I got my sources over here. I'll bring me here. Let's put, where are we gonna put the chat? Let's put the chat here. Let's put this here. Let's put that there. Okay, we're all organized at the desktop level. Got my super chats. Questions, comments, concerns, you can super chat. Real quick, let me shout out to people that cash at me yesterday. Cash app $ Hotep Jesus to support and keep this channel growing and getting bigger and better. Nikita King, thank you. Renee Vogel and Bob Patterson, appreciate you. Y'all the real MVPs. Shout out to the people who cash at me. So some interesting. So Kai is probably the closest to the truth here. I see some people speculating with their Jabari's got it right. Yes, Jabari's peoples are responsible. So let's get into today's presentation. We're gonna hop right in here. No delay. Whoever's late is, well, they'll have to watch the replay. Actually, hold on, I forgot my cup. Hold on a second. I gotta put the coming soon back on. Hold on, I'll be right back. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. We back.
Yeah, we back. Back-to-back years. Griftees right here, 2021. The often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest award show on earth, the Griftees.
Did you miss us? I love being back. I love being in this role. Ladies and gentlemen, Griftees is coming soon. Subscribe, like, share. We're coming at you soon. My bad. I'm back. Sir Roosevelt said, HJ, do you smoke marijuana? Occasionally. I used to be a more on the heavy side of, like a daily smoker. But now I'm more like once every 90 days. Yeah, I'm more like once every 90 days. I go see the homie, recalibrate my THC levels. I think the last time was like maybe the late last summer. And then after that, New Year's, that whole week after New Year's, I copped some for New Year's. And then that whole week I was just high as shit. And that was fun. But now I'm back to sober life where life is more productive. So yeah, let's dive into today's presentation real fast. Let me go ahead and just retweet this so we get some nice little promo here. I lost followers today because I said to ask the Getter CEO about Gu Wengu, the Chinese billionaire he bought the site from. I guess conservatives are all in their panties. They'll be all right. All right, let's get into today's presentation. Put this up on the screen real fast for you. Boom, boom. 1854. So in order to talk about the Civil War, we must discuss the Knights of the Golden Circle. Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about when I mention that, but we must discuss the Knights of the Golden Circle. This is like Illuminati stuff here. For anybody unaware, this is called the Patriot Report. This is in the playlist Patriot Report, where I walk through chapter by chapter my book, The Patriot Report, available on Amazon and my website in digital format. Absolutely wonderful document with the history of money as it is tied to war. Just today we're going to talk about money and war as it relates to the Civil War. Let's go to the next slide. So, hold on. I actually don't like this window setup. That's better. Okay, cool. So, in my book, I write the, if you guys watched the last presentation, it was about the second bank of the United States, which was technically the third bank of the United States. And it says here, I'll pop this up on your screen. Hold on. It says here, the second bank's charter ended in 1836 and subsequently went private. Following Van Buren's presidency, William Henry Harrison would become the ninth president of the United States on March 4th, 1841. With this, the international banking powers finally landed someone favorable to their cause in the executive seal. Proof of his allyship is in his inaugural speech. And, this basically takes aim at Jackson and some things Jackson did during his presidency, where he wasn't allowing the central bank to come through. It basically says of the Treasury from the banking institutions, it is not the divorce which is complained of, but the unhallowed union of the Treasury with the executive department, which has created such extensive alarm to this danger to our Republican institutions, and that created by the influence given to the executive through the instrumentality of the federal officers. I propose to apply all the remedies which may be at my command. It was certainly a great error in the framers of the Constitution not to have made the officer at the head of the Treasury Department entirely independent of the executive. He should at least be removable only upon the demand of the popular branch of the legislature. I have determined never to remove a secretary of the Treasury without communicating all the circumstances attending such removal to both House of Congress. If you followed the last presentation, right here, he's taking aim at Jackson, where he says he should at least have been removable only upon the demand of the popular branch of legislature. So basically Congress. Cool. So we'll continue. So the second bank's charter ends. It goes private. This guy, William Henry Harrison, becomes the ninth president of the United States, but he falls ill and dies. I think he's got the shortest presidency in history. He dies like a month into his administration. So then we continue here, and it says Congress introduced two banking bills, but both were vetoed by the new president, John Tyler. Shout out to John Tyler. Good job, bro. On August 16th, 1841, Tyler gave his veto message regarding the bank, to which I'll add an excerpt here. So I'll play that. I'll read that excerpt out to you real quick. Jabari Judah, he said, John Wilkes Booth is also my people's. Uh-oh. Oh, man. Let's go back. So in his veto speech, he says the power of Congress to create a national bank to operate per se over the Union has been a question of dispute from the origin of the government. It will suffice for me to say that my own opinion has been uniformly proclaimed to be against the exercise of any such power by this government. So here I state the international banking powers have been vanquished for now. And then I continue and I wrote, without war, the bankers couldn't force a national deficit, but war was on the horizon. In 1854, a secret society is founded called the Knights of the Golden Circle, which had amongst its membership the infamous bandit Jess James. And we'll talk about another individual who's part of the Knights of the Golden Circle. If you're taking notes, that's the first point you want to write down, Knights of the Golden Circle. Some of you people like to do your own research, and I think there's a wealth of information available on the Knights of Golden Circles is a very real thing. It's not some made up thing. It's not some Illuminati conspiracy theory. It is conspiracy fact. So Knights of Golden Circle is something you can go and do your Googles on, or your DuckDucks, your DuckDuckGos, your ducks, do your searches. I would prefer you do it with DuckDuckGo. You'll get better search results, I believe. But check both search engines. You'll get a different order of results. So according to Stephen Birmingham, he says at the outbreak of the war, the United States Treasury was in greater shambles than Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter. That's a hell of an analogy. He says Southern banks have been quietly withdrawing large amounts of funds on deposit in the North. When Lincoln took office, he found his treasury almost empty. So basically what happened was, actually, I'll just read this here because this is very important. It says pulling funds was a clever and sneaky move by the banking powers behind the Confederates, which put pressure on Lincoln. This forced him to find money to fund the North in the war. He first sought help from the banks in New York, but they set an interest rate of 28%, which is obviously super high. And then he got clever. He invoked the power of Article 1, Section 8, and issued greenbacks. Some of you are familiar with that, which were backed by specie. So this is a currency that is actually backed by some hard assets such as gold. And obviously this infuriated the bankers. Now, real fast here, let's pull this up on your screen. Why does this look like this? I'm sorry. I just want to adjust this really fast. It's just a little off. My OCD kicking in. If I can get that box just right, we'll be good. So it should be like right there, I believe. And then pop that out. That's fine. We'll leave that there. That's cool. You're going to learn some interesting things today. It's going to blow your mind, I believe. Some of you, at least. Some of you, this is a refresher or just a couple of additions to your knowledge base. So we talked about this, right? The empty treasury. So here, an individual by the name of Nathaniel P. Banks. He says, when I stand in the United States Treasury, I stand on English soil. Now, you all know we have to look people up, look things up. So I'm going to type in Nathaniel P. Banks, and I just think it's very important that individuals understand who this guy is. So let's pull him up on your screen here. And this is Nathaniel P. Banks. Let me adjust that for you. I think it's very interesting that his last name is Banks. He says American politician from Massachusetts, a Union general during the Civil War. At the outbreak of the Civil War, President Lincoln appointed Banks as one of the first political major generals. So this is one of his generals, right? So another thing, write that down, Nathaniel P. Banks. I want you guys to do your research on that. Let's go back to the slide. I probably have to adjust that on your screen, right? Yeah. And then just a little up, and then we'll be good. Cool. All right. Just want to make sure that's straight. So, I mean, what is he saying here? What is he saying when he says, when I stand in the United States Treasury, I stand on English soil? And should I make this point now or later? Well, let's make it now so I don't forget. So the other day I was looking up, what is my time zone, right? So I'm Eastern time zone, right? So, Eastern time zone is, I'll show you on the screen here. Eastern time zone is UTC 0500, 500, right? So I said to myself, well, who is zero? I'm like, so I scrolled up. So let's go. I'll type in list of time zones. Because I figured zero would be like the median, like the middle, the center of the world, right? Anybody know who zero is? I'll give you some time to think about it. Pop your questions in the chat. I'm just trying to pull it up on the screen here. So right here, you'll see, I'll put this on your screen and you'll see right here, 0, UTC 0, right, is what? You'll see here, Western Europe. So that includes Portugal, the United Kingdom, and it says here, principal cities, it's London. London. So apparently, according to the powers that be, the people who set up these time zones or what have you, London is the center of the world. I just found that quite interesting to find out the other day, which may have been something I knew in the past or have forgotten about. But I found that interesting. It says, when I stand in the United States Treasury, I stand on English soil. And so I guess London, let's see. So some people said Greenwich. Some people said England. 2020 said probably City of London. Congratulations. You are correct, sir. That sound effect was not supposed to be there. I forgot I moved the soundboard around. Joe said, Hotep, you're way too based. Hey, man, I just read books, man. So yeah, nobody. Congratulations. You said London. You were correct. So anybody who said UK or London is actually correct. 2020 says City of London is where LIBOR mortgage rates are set. That also is true. I remember that from working in the banking industry. Totally forgot about that. You are absolutely right, sir. So, hold on, let me quit Slack so that sound won't play anymore. So here we have the powers that be are apparently operating out of London. And London is the only real monarchy left. I know there's some in Africa, but you know, black people don't count, right? Am I allowed to say that? It's an African monarchy, but they don't count. But so yeah, so London is the center of the world, right? And that's interesting. And we'll continue. You'll see why that I brought that up, why that's relevant. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Damn, thank you for reminding me. I forgot to play my Mozart, man. Where is he? Bong bong. Let's pull him up. Come on, baby. I apologize if you're watching the playback. We'll be commencing shortly. Boom. Okay, we're back. All right, cool. I just need that in the background. So Amadeus super chatted. He said, do you think John Tyler slipped William Henry some of that 33rd element of the periodic table? What is that, lead? What's the 33rd element? Arsenic. Okay, go on. Inside of the ages. Money history will be a great topic for the next Patreon chat. When is it? Patreon chat is tomorrow. Uncle Hotep will I'll create the Zoom and send that. And if you're part of the Patreon, patreon.com/Hotep's been told you, we have a private chat with all of our members of our Patreon, patreon.com/Hotep's been told you. And so, yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. I'm down. Okay, so enough stalling. Let's get back to the presentation. So, interesting quote when he says, when I stand in the United States Treasury, I stand on English soil. So England, Britain, whatever you want to call it. Oh, not supposed to see that yet. We'll get to that shortly. So with that being said, let's dive into something really cool. Actually, that is relevant. Let's put that on the screen right now. I'm so sorry. Yes, we are at that point. Now, this is the second thing you need to write down if you're taking notes. The hazard circular. The hazard circular is uber important. Uber important for you to research, study on your own. So I'm going to read some excerpts here, and then we'll dive into a source I found today while I was putting this presentation together. I just wanted to have another source. I had to look up something. I forget what it was. And when I found this, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I think I just had to jog my memory about something. So let's dive into the hazard circular. So we talked about so it says Jackson's veto address already warned of this foreign power which controls the money decision in the nation. If you watched the last presentation on the Patriot Report playlist here on YouTube, go watch that. If you haven't, it takes you through all of it to catch you up on where we are. It says, allow me to first mention the controversial hazard circle of 1862. Some of the text from the valid or invalid document reads. So the reason why I say valid or invalid is there's some controversy as to whether this hazard circular is real or not, and that's what we're going to discuss in a second. But first, let's read what the hazard circular is talking about. And I know you didn't learn this in grade school because they would not tell you about the banker plot, because the bankers control your education system. Anyway, let's continue. It says slavery is likely to be abolished by the war power. In fact, I think I would just want to put this on your screen so you guys can see how I'm, as I'm reading this. It says slavery. Let's highlight that. This is what the hazard circular predicts. It says slavery is likely to be abolished by who? The war power. What is the war power? We have to ask ourselves, what is the war power? It doesn't say abolished by the war. It says the war power. So I'm going to speculate and say the war power is the powers that be who push us into war. Anyway, let's continue. It says this in my European, this I and my European favors are in favor of for slave. This I and my European friends are in favor of. For slavery is but the owning of labor and carries with it the care of the laborers, while the European plan, led on by England, remember we talked about England being zero on a GMT, is that capital shall control labor by controlling wages. Capital shall control labor by controlling wages. Now, I think there's a huge illustration of this when we think about inflation and how inflation basically robs you of your labor. You work for $10 an hour and inflation steals, I guess they're going to say today inflation's at 7%. So 7%. It's going to be stolen. Another 12 to 20% is going to be stolen by the IRS. And then, you're working a quarter of the year just to pay that off. And then I guess almost the rest could be yours. So they're talking about here the control of capital, right? So basically what I interpret this to be is the introduction of the transition from physical slavery to financial slavery. So that's what this is. They're saying, hey, this slavery is archaic. We're controlling the laborers, but there's a better plan. And it says here, instead of controlling the people, we can actually, instead of controlling the people through this labor, we can actually control the labor and the people by controlling the money, right? That's how I interpret this thing. Let's continue. So it says here, and it has a hazard circular, the great debt that capitalists will see to it is made out of the war, right here. So this is one of my motivations for writing this book, The Patriot Report, available on Amazon and my website in digital format. It says the great debt that capitalists will see to it is made out of the war, must be used to control the value of money. The value of money. Controlling the value of money. Well, a dollar is supposed to be a dollar, right? How can the dollar be anything less than a dollar? Well, we know how that exists today, which is why Bitcoin is so popular. As we experience this Bitcoin crash or correction or whatever we want to call it, dip. Cassius Cam, thank you for the super chat. He said they definitely lying about the inflation rate because if they were honest, they'd have to increase Social Security payments. Word. It's a good point, bro. It's a really good point. Let me just make sure. Okay, so Trey Sheik, thank you for sharing the chat. Sharing the presentation. Cassius Cam, share the presentation. Appreciate you. If you, I'll shout you out if you share my presentation. Lauren, so consistent. I love it. I love it. She says I'm late to class, but better late than never. Absolutely. Hannah, thank you. Okay, cool. So let's get back. Let's get back to the presentation. Hold on, let me make sure I'm on the same page as you. So it says here, the great debt that capitalists will see to it is made out of the war must be used to control the value of the money. To accomplish this, the government bonds must be used as a banking basis. We are now waiting for the Secretary Treasurer of the United States to make that recommendation. So basically, this is a push to push the nation to war. I explained that to you already. Push the nation to war, and you can present yourself as a financial savior. It says here, it will not do to allow greenbacks. Now, look, the word greenbacks is here before Lincoln uses it. So they kind of predicted this hazard circular. It will not do to allow greenbacks, as they are called, to circulate as money for any length of time, as we cannot control that. But we can control the bonds and through them, the banking issues. That's very important. He says they can't control that currency, but we can control the bonds and through them, the banking issues. For anybody not understanding that, bonds are how the government raises money. And if you can control how the government raises money, well, you can kind of control the currency in some ways, or you can manipulate the currency in some ways by controlling the value of those bonds, etc., etc. Anyway, moving on. If we're looking for a motive, right? So let's go to presentation and wait, before we move on, we have to talk about the hazard circular. So let's go here. Let's put this on your screen. Let's adjust this. Okay, cool. So this is an awesome article. I was looking up the hazard circle and I was I forget why I looked it up. Because we're talking about the validity of the hazard circular. Is the hazard circular valid? And here I'll pop in the chat a link to, I believe, is a wonderful source to start your own research into this. But we talked about the hazard circular and how it basically purports that we're going to get rid of slavery and replace it with financial slavery. So this person says, so here's his historical background of the hazard circular. And it says it was not until 1886 that the hazard circular would be disclosed to the general public. The disclosure would percolate through the President of the United States over the next decade and become a keystone of the partisan rhetoric of the blossoming populist movement. During the 1890s, the hazard circular and several other provocative letters would make their rounds through the public conscious. To some, the letters were seen as one of the greatest infamies of civilized history. Greatest infamies of civilized history. Now, how is it that these letters were one of the greatest infamies of civilized history, but I had never heard of them until I did my research? So let's pop this poll in. Answer honestly. Have you ever heard of the hazard circular? And we'll pop that in the chat and see if anybody's heard of this, because I had not. Maybe I'm the only one that was misinformed, but up until I did my research. So answer that poll and say, until you heard me speak of it today, did you know of the hazard circular? Because it says here, greatest infamies of civilized history. So it was the greatest infamies of civilized history. Why haven't we been informed of it? As of right now, it looks like we have 75% that said no. And proofs of a vast conspiracy by the industrial capitalist class to manipulate the American economy and therefore the destinies of the people. Others would claim the letters to be proven forgeries, even going so far as to offer a bounty of $100 in gold for any proof to the contrary. He said, while the debate raged on about the authenticity of the document, few actually bothered to trace its origin. Little evidence was ever offered to prove the hazard circular forged and spurious. And this is something we talk about on this channel, right? Where somebody says, hey, I need you to prove, this conspiracy is real. And, my response to that is, I need you to prove it's not real. They always try to put the onus on us. Hey, prove this is real. And I'm like, well, prove it's not real. Right? How about I'll work on trying to prove it's real and you work on trying to prove to me it's not real, but you can't just put the onus on me. We both have to do the work. Okay? But the thing is, they don't want to do the work, because if they did the work, then, well, they'd be exposed by their ignorance. So it says, and on the opposite side, is doubtful anyone ever claimed the $100 golden reward offered by Joseph W. Addy. However, for the researcher not merely interested in the partisan mudslinging of time, further information and circus slowly leaked through the press. So I'm not going to read all this, but you guys can come in and do your due diligence and read this article here. But I'll read this. It says, so what of this bank and its cashier? Because apparently what happened was a cashier was given this circular, and that's how it, got into this guy, Mr. Sharp's possession. Not related to me. I'm Brian Sharp, but I'm Sharp with an E. I don't know this guy. It's not my family. But it landed in Mr. Sharp's possession. It says the First National Bank Council of Grove was organized in 1872, and the flood of national banks that are erected following the passing of the National Bank Acts of 1863 to 64. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. It said its president was Edward S. Stover, and the bank was chartered with a capital of $50,000. However, it would only stay open for a mere 4 years before failing and moving into voluntary liquidation in 1876 during the Great Depression, as had been mentioned previously. 4 years, though, appears to have been just enough time for the hazard circular to be sent from New York to the cashier. I think that's a typo. To be sent to the cashier. From New York cashier, whatever. The cashier at the First National Bank, John W. Simcock, to aid in his comprehension of the national banking system. His name has several times been presented erroneously in national registers as John W. Simcock. Paul's no homo. But he was indeed the cashier for that bank during its time of operations. John Simcock also had a banking firm in Council Grove by the name of Johnson and Bankers, John W. Simcock and Co. Bankers. So, as you can see here, this guy has done some due diligence. In regards to this bank. So he does like some I would say fairly decent research. It seems to be pretty good. So you can read all of this, and we're not going to spend too much time on a hazard circular. I just want you, because there's some speculation as to whether this is real or not, this guy has done some research and has provided some evidence, as you see here, banker friends in New York, and has done some research on the validity of the hazard circular. So the chat has 98% no, that they never heard of the hazard circular. Yet, this is, as he describes, one of the most, hold on, let me find it, greatest infamies of civilized history. And he's quoting that based upon this source here, the 3 greatest infamies, right? And this is a document behind a paywall. It says here, a newspaper article. So this is a newspaper article. Looks like the Goodland Republic, May 25, 1894. The newspaper article, which describes several letters, including the hazard circular, the panic circular. We're going to talk about that in another chapter of the book, and prints them in full. These are allegedly private correspondence between the Bank of England and the banks in the United States. Again, England, center of the world. All right. So, again, there you go. In fact, I'm going to put this source in the description box, so anybody who reading this afterwards, you can go and look at this article. I'll just say the hazard circular, and boom. All right, that's safe. So that's in the description box. Chat, y'all good? Everybody happy? Awesome. Pink. All right, so his name is Pink Butthole, and he says a hazard circular smells like propaganda similar to the Elders of Zion, both fake and used for political purposes before the internet research was possible. So, these are the type of agents that enter the chat. His name is Pink Butthole, so obviously, what we do with these people, we put them in timeout. because they're speculating and we're providing evidence. So people who speculate and provide no evidence have to be blocked. We have to block them because they're trying to distract us from our mission. Let's continue. And they'll always try to call you an anti-Semite or some shit like that. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Just like we haven't even mentioned Jewish people. We're talking about money here and history, and somehow he's equated that to the elders of Zion. Anyway, let's continue. Yeah, the ops always show up when you start talking about money and banking. So, and also keep in mind, I told you, I specifically said we don't know if these documents are valid or invalid. I also said so in my book. But yet here the ops are trying to discount this, but this guy has done extensive research. Let's go back. Do not want to let the ops distract, because that's what the ops do. You got to remember the ops' main goal is to distract. Misinform, yes. Disinform, yes. But the main thing they want to do is distract. You can't let them distract us. So let's come back. Can you guys see that? Cool. So we talked about the hazard circular. Let's go here. If he talks again, mods, please just block him again until he is no longer able to participate in the chat. Okay. So here we are looking for a motive. So let's go here, and then let's go here. So is there a motive? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Is there a motive? So we have John R. Elsom in his work Lightning Over the Treasury Building. Write that down. John R. Elsom, Lightning Over the Treasury Building. An awesome document. Write that down. John R. Elsom, Lightning Over the Treasury Building. This is something that you need to have in your collection. So an expert here reads, if this mischievous financial policy, which has its origin in the North American Republic, shall become indurated down to a fixture, then that government will furnish its own money without cost. It will pay off its debt and be without debt. It will have all the money necessary to carry on its commerce. It will become prosperous without precedent in the history of the world. The brains, I don't know if I can say without precedent. I don't know if I can agree with that. I believe Sweden was operating with a 1-to-1 currency prior to, and we talked about John Law in the first presentation of this. So I think this isn't the first, but I think, I would say Sweden was first. Maybe this is, but he says history of the world. Anyway, let's continue. He says the brains and the wealth of all countries will go to North America. That government must be destroyed, or will destroy every monarchy on the globe. And again, remember we talked about monarchies, and the only standing monarchy left that would matter, at least to the Western world, is the one that sits in England or Great Britain or the UK or whatever those creepy people are. So it says here, so now here's again, London, England being center of the world. Let's continue. We have 2 London banking letters. The funny thing is, who they're from is redacted from the records. And again, you'll find this in Lightning Over the Treasury Building, which is an awesome source. And people always say, hey, you got to get, Jekyll Island, Creature of Jekyll Island. It's like, yeah, that's one source, but like, you have to have multiple sources. And I include them all in my book, The Patriot Report, Unmasked Conspiracy and Money Wars, you see on your screen now. So, this first letter, which I'll read in its entirety because it's not that long, is to a Mr. John Sherman. So first, let's pull him up. So we have some background on this gentleman. I'll put that on your screen right now. Boom. And it says here, John Sherman was a politician from the U.S. state of Ohio during the American Civil War and into the late 19th century, a member of the Republican Party. He served on both houses of the U.S. Congress. He also served as Secretary of the Treasury and Secretary of the State. So this is controlling money and controlling law, right? I'm sorry, foreign policy. I corrected myself there. Foreign policy. Which is quite interesting because he's receiving letters from London. All right, cool. So let's continue. Let's go back to the presentation. Hold on. And I'll fix this on your screen in just a moment. Cool. And then let me pull this up. All right. So it continues. It says, let me check on chat. Chat, we good? We good? All right, cool. It says here, Mr. John Sherman has written to us from a town in Ohio, USA, as to the profit that may be made in the national banking business. In fact, let me put this on your screen so you can read along here. This is right from my book. That's what you're seeing on the screen right now. It's actually my book. And you'll see here the source. And all the sources are listed in the footnotes. As to the profit that may be made in the national banking business under a recent act of your Congress. So right here, this letter is talking about profit that can be made in the national banking business under the recent act of your Congress. Right? So the act, the Banking Act was passed, if my memory serves me correctly, February sometime. We'll get to that in a second. All right, let's continue. 33rd element is arsenic. 33 is that master number, Freemasonry. Interesting. Anyway, let's continue. And a copy of this act accompanies this letter, right? So apparently this act has been drawn up on the plan formulated here by the British Bankers Association. So right here, this act is saying, this letter is saying that the act, and I guess we should put this in perspective really fast before we continue. The National Banking Act. Let's put this on your screen real fast. Might as well just do that now. Oops, sorry. This will be on your screen in just a jiffy. Bing bong. So right here it says the National Banking Act of 1863 and 1864 were two United States federal banking acts that established a system of national banks and created the United States national banking system. They encouraged the development of national currency backed by bank holdings of the U.S. Treasury securities and established the Office of Comptroller of the Currency. This is the controller. This is the folks in charge. As part of the United States Department of Treasury and a system of nationally chartered banks, the act shaped today's national banking system in its support of a uniform. So right here, you see this act shaped today's national banking system. This is important. This is important. Wikipedia is telling you right here. And as we read this, you're going to see what's up. The act shaped today's national banking system. People keep talking about the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve ain't nothing. There are precedents. Y'all keep studying the Federal Reserve. No, you got to go before that. This is why I wrote the book. This book I wrote stops right when the Federal Reserve starts. There was no reason for me to research the Federal Reserve because everything that the Federal Reserve stands for and stands on was already laid out prior to its inception. You don't got to study the Fed. The Fed is that's just erroneous. You should probably study the Fed, but you need to know this before we get to the Fed, because as it says, the act shaped today's national banking system. And wait till you get to the second letter. So let's go back. So here it says, apparently this act has been drawn up on a plan formulated here by the British Bankers Association, 000. And by that association, recommend to our American friends as one that, if enacted into law, would prove highly profitable to the banking fraternity throughout the world. Mr. Sherman declares that, remember, we talked about Mr. Sherman right here, right? Politician, right? Mr. Sherman declares that there has never been such an opportunity for capitalists to accumulate money as that presented by this act. I'll read that again. It's important. Mr. Sherman declares that there has never been such an opportunity for capitalists to accumulate money as that presented by this act. It gives the National Bank almost complete control of the national finance. The few who understand the system, he says, will either be so interested in its profits or so dependent on its favors that there will be no opposition from that class. While, on the other hand, the great body of people, mentally incapable of comprehending the tremendous advantages that capital derives from the system, will bear its burden without complaint and perhaps without even suspecting that the system is inimical to their interests. Let's read that again. It's important to read. It says it gives the National Bank almost complete control of the national finance. This is the letter about the National Bank Act of 1863 to 1864. It says the few who understand the system, he says, will either be so interested in its profits, the few interested in its profits. Some people wonder, oh, why does the Fed exist? We hired these people to run Congress, right? And only Congress has the ability to control the Fed. But it says the few who understand the system, he says, will either be so interested in its profits. Nancy Pelosi, is that who is he referring to? I don't know. I'm just speculating. Don't come for me, Nancy. Don't send the black vans to my house. I'm just speculating. The few who understand the system, he says, will be either so interested in its profits or so dependent on its favors. Dependent on its favors. So you wonder why people aren't exposing the plot. It's because they like, yo, they profiting, or hey, they in their pocket. They're dependent. On its favors, and there will be no opposition from that class. While, on the other hand, and this is the most important part to me, because this is what I talk about. People say, what's wrong with the world? Why does America look the way it does? And my response is because people are stupid. Because people don't educate themselves. Because people aren't in this presentation right now. Because people are arguing about something else in the world. Brittany Renner, Fresh and Fit, or something else, which makes them incapable of comprehending, this letter says, from London to Mr. Sherman, or of Mr. Sherman. Mentally incapable of comprehending the tremendous advantages that capital derives from the system, will bear its burden without complaint. How can you complain about something that you don't understand? And it says, perhaps without even suspecting that the system is inimical to their interests. How many people walk around this world not understanding how treacherous and inimical the Federal Reserve is? How many people don't even suspect it? You ever run into somebody and be like, hey, you ever heard of the Federal Reserve? They're like, nah, what's that? And it's like, bro, have you read the bottom of your money? Let's see. What does it say here? Where is it? Right here. Top corner. What does that say? Federal Reserve notes. It's on our money. We throw this around all day. And where you at? Where you at? You never heard of the Federal Reserve, but it's on your money. Do you read your money? You don't read nothing. People don't read nothing. They don't even read their money. They don't even read what's on their money. What's wrong with these people? cool down. I'm getting fired up over here. Take a sip of my Joe. Pause. Let's continue. So this is the second letter. We're past the veto. Okay. Second letter. So the London banking letters. All right. Hold on. We're gonna come back to the slide. I'll come back to the slide when we weigh in. So here again. Second letter. Let's put this on your screen. Hold on. Okay. Wait. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So, second letter reads, it says, we beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter of June 25 in which you refer to a communication received of Honorable John Sherman of Ohio with reference to the advantages and profits of the American investment under the provisions of the National Banking Act. Mr. Sherman possesses, in a marked degree, the distinguishing characteristics of a successful financier. His temperament is such that, whatever his feelings may be, they never cause him to lose sight of the main chance. So our guy, John Sherman, is definitely focused on getting that shmoney. It says he is young, shrewd, and ambitious. He has fixed his eyes upon the presidency of the United States and is already a member of Congress. He has financial ambitions too. Right here. He rightfully thinks that he has everything to gain by being friendly with men and institutions having large financial resources. We just talked about that. Right? The few who understand the system, he says, will either be so interested in its profits. Right? So that's what he's talking about in the first letter. So he says he rightfully thinks that he has everything to gain by being friendly with men and institutions having large financial resources, and which at times are not too particular in their methods, either of obtaining government aid or protecting themselves against unfriendly legislation. So here they have their agent inside the United States, who rightfully thinks that he has everything to gain by being friendly with men and institutions having large financial resources, and which at times are not too particular in their methods, either by obtaining government aid or protecting themselves against unfriendly legislation. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. It says, as to the organization of the National Bank here and the nature of the profits of such investments, we beg leave to refer to our printed circulars enclosed herein. It says any number of persons, not less than 5, may organize a national banking corporation, except in cities having 6,000 inhabitants or less. A national bank cannot have less than 1 million in capital. They are private corporations. Hold on. They are private corporations organized for profit. Chat, we good? Adam says, is Bitcoin a good thing or no? Well, you got to ask yourself, is the dollar a good thing or no? You know, when you think about Bitcoin, just think about dollar or Bitcoin. I'm definitely choosing Bitcoin. Anyway, for various reasons. We'll talk about that later. They are private corporations organized for private gain and select their own officers and employees. Who selects the chairman of the Fed? I'd like you to answer that. They're not subject to control of state laws, except as Congress may from time to time provide. We just talked about that. They may receive deposits and loan the same for their own benefit. They can buy and sell bonds and discount paper and do a general banking business. To start a national bank on a scale of $1 million will require a purchase of that amount par value of U.S. government bonds. U.S. government bonds can now be purchased at 50% discount. I'm not going to do a class on bonds and discounts. You can go to Investopedia and do your research on discounts and how these things are issued. And I strongly suggest you do so if you're not familiar. So write that down in your notes. And it says, so that a bank of $1 million capital can be started this time for only $500,000. These bonds must be deposited in the U.S. Treasury at Washington as security for the national bank currency. that will be furnished by the government to the bank. The United States government will pay 6% interest on the bonds in gold. Let's stop right there. You create fake money out of thin air. Comes out your ass. You fart out some fake currency, but you're able to get this real gold in exchange. Let's continue. I shouldn't have to break that down. It will be seen that at the present price of bonds, the interest paid by the government itself is 12% in gold, all money invested. The U.S. government, on having the bonds, aforementioned, I guess, deposited with the Treasury on the strength of such security will furnish national currency to the bank depositing the bonds at an actual interest rate of only 1% annum. The currency is printed by the United States government in a form so like greenbacks that the people do not detect the difference, although the currency is but a promise of the bank to pay. Wow. The currency is all but a promise of the bank to pay. But a promise. Let's continue. Sorry. The demand for money is so great that this money can be readily loaned to the people across the counter at the bank at a discount of a rate 10% at 30 to 60 days time, making it about 12% interest on the currency. The interest on the bonds plus the interest on the currency, which the bonds secure, plus incidentals of the business ought to make gross earnings of the bank amount to 28 to 33%. Okay, says national banks are privileged to. This is the most important part right here. This is the part I wanted to get to. National banks are privileged, and if you've watched any of the other presentations in the series, you know exactly what's happening here. This is inflation and deflation, and we're about to experience deflation this year. It says the national banks are privileged to increase and contract their currency at will, and of course can grant and withhold loans as they may see fit. As the banks have a national organization and can easily act together in withholding loans or extending them, it follows that they can by united action in refusing to make these loans cause a stringency in the money market. This is important here. As the banks have a national organization and can easily act together in withholding loans or extending them, it follows that they can, by united action and refusing to make loans, cause a stringency in the money market, and in a single week or in a single day cause a decline in all products of the country. It's a lot of power for one entity to have. And you wonder why we see today an increase in the prices. Inflation. National banks pay no taxes on their bonds, nor their capital, nor their deposits. Most respect for yours, Ickelheimer, Morton, and Vandergold. I'll let y'all do y'all speculations and your research on those names. I would write those down too. Ickelheimer, Morton, and Vandergold are the names here on this letter. Chat, how we looking? Jabaria Judah. There has been a lot of marriages between my peoples and certain Italian families that were down with the papacy since they outlawed banking for Christians. Word. Cassius Cam, he said, if your crypto is on the exchange, you don't have any. Cassius Cam, respectfully, let me hop in right there. You're not wrong. First of all, Cassius Cam is not wrong. However, we need to allow people. I think that here's the problem with the crypto community. The crypto community is so focused on things like what Cassius Cam is saying. Like, he's not wrong, right? But before we do things like that, let's get people into the community. Let's get people into cryptocurrency before we scare them with things like that, right? We're scared, like that will scare people away. Like, what do you mean? And confuse them. Let's get them in. Pump Coinbits app, Coinbits.app. because Coinbase.app is custodial until you extract it to your own wallet. But I think getting people into crypto is very important. But you're not wrong, Cassius Cam. Cassius Cam is 100% correct. However, if you've watched any of I have 2 interviews with Cyprian, formerly known as Vin Armani. Even if you have crypto in your wallet, you still don't have any. You don't own it. You have access. You have keys to the crypto. And it's very important to understand that you can't own Bitcoin. You cannot own Bitcoin. So people say, hey, I own Bitcoin. No, you don't. You have access to Bitcoin, to which you purchased. You purchased access to Bitcoin. So whether it's on the exchange, what you can say is if the crypto is on the exchange, you don't control it, right? You don't 100% control it. That's what we can say. So this is the cryptocurrency conversation that is needs to be had. So let's continue. So I'm very honest. I said I can neither confirm nor deny the validity of these letters, but in my search for answers to my questions regarding the history of our nation, the United States, I found it important to include them here for your own investigation. So if you guys want to go and investigate the validity of those letters, I encourage you to do so, and please come back and show me your findings. Dia Blaze, thank you. Appreciate you, man. All right, it says here, on February 25th, 1863, the bankers would have their way. The National Bank Act, 1863, passes through Congress at the hands of Secretary Treasurer. Get ready. Salmon P. Chase. Yes, Chase Bank. Cassius Cam said, my point is only keep eggs in your exchange basket you're willing to crack on non-rainy days. Absolutely. Correct. Salmon P. Chase and Senator John Sherman, who we've already discussed, which you should recognize from the letters above. Their excuse was the financial crisis which resulted from the debt of the Civil War. Now, if you watch any of these presentations, you understand that what happens is the powers that be force people into war. War creates debt, and then debt allegedly provides a need for some financial entity to come in and bail you out, help you out. They say, oh, you don't know how to manage your money. We should do it for you, right? So that's basically what's happening here. Now, let's go back. Presentation. Here, Lincoln, on the National Bank Act, he says, the money power preys upon a nation in times of peace. That's what we're talking about, right? War, money. So the money power preys upon the nation in times of peace and conspires against it in times of adversity. It is more despotic than monarchy and more insolent than autocracy, more selfish than bureaucracy. I see in the near future a crisis approaching that unnerves me and causes me to tremble for the safety of my country. Corporations have been enthroned. An era of corruption will follow, and the money power of the country will endeavor to prolong its reign by working upon the prejudices of the people until the wealth is aggregated in a few hands and the republic is destroyed. These are the words of President Lincoln. Salmon P. Chase, write that down. Also important character for you guys to research. So, back to the book. It says, let's bring civil war into focus. The international banking interests, which have already established central banks in France and England, have brought their respective countries into the war. So now the war has already started. I don't go into the specifics of the Civil War. You guys have already been taught most of that, or you can go research that on your own. I just want to talk about money and war, or money as it relates to war. And it says here, so France has a central bank. England has a central bank controlled by the same banking interests that are trying to establish one in the United States of America. So the South is going to be allied with France and England. It says the Confederates had the French with troops in Mexico. So the North is actually going to be surrounded, right? So the banking interests send the France to the South through Mexico, and then the English through the North in Canada. Okay. And I'm sorry. Let me reread that. The Confederates had the French with troops in Mexico and the English with troops in Canada backing them. So you got the South with France and England. So the North is facing three enemies. You got the South, France, and England. Now, there's some crazy odds. These are some crazy odds. Let's continue. It says, now I said, we know Lincoln did not want to free the slaves because he said so. He said it himself. So people say, oh, the war was about slavery. That's fake news. If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. This is what Lincoln said. So now the real reason for the Emancipation Proclamation comes into focus in 1861. Now here's the real reason. Here's the real reason. You ready? You guys ready? The real reason for the war is going to be presented to you right now. In 1861, Russia passed the Emancipation Reform of 1861, which abolished serfdom. Holy cow. Look how similar these names are. Emancipation Proclamation. Russia passed the Emancipation Reform. So I'll continue. So Lincoln's proclamation was a gesture to the Russian people to gain their support. Russia, who did not have a central bank, protected the North from the European bullies with its powerful navy. So yeah, like there were like blockades, I believe, from the English Navy, stopping like shipments and things coming in. So the Russian Navy helped. So it says if France or England stepped into the war, the Tsar would declare war on both nations, right? So it says about a month before the end of the war, Lincoln would be assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. Hold on, let me see something. Okay. Yeah, so hold on. Right here, presentation. I didn't make this for no reason. You're going to have to look at it. Russia as an ally in 1861. Russia passed the Emancipation Reform. So write that down. Russia passed the Emancipation Reform in 1861. Write that down. Put that in your notes. Jabari Judy said the number 2 guy and treasurer for the Confederacy is also my peoples. Dang, they're everywhere. There is money in war. His name is actually his last name's Judah too. Judah P. Benjamin. Let's pull that guy up. Thank you for jogging my memory on that. I want to say that was him. I'll actually pull him up on the screen. Let's pull him up on the screen. Here he is. You guys can see that. Judah P. Benjamin was United States Senator from Louisiana, cabinet officer, Confederate States. Now, this guy had a lot of power. After his escape to the United Kingdom at the end of the American Civil War, he was an English barrister. Benjamin was the first Jew to hold cabinet position in North America and to be the first elected to the United States Senate who had not renounced his faith. So let's look at his positions. So he served as Secretary of State. He was the first Confederate States Attorney General, second Confederate States Secretary of War, and third Confederate States Secretary of State. He was a senator. I wanted to say he had another role. I might be thinking of somebody else. No, he was just, yeah, okay, Secretary of State and Secretary of War. Right. So this guy had a lot of influence. Let's go back. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jabari. As you can see, my audience is quite well informed. Let's go back. Well, it says here, About a month before the end of the Civil War, April 15th, 1865, Lincoln would be assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. Unironically, Booth was allegedly a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle. Remember, we talked about that earlier. Knights of the Golden Circle. People want to talk about Illuminati and all that stuff. Well, go do your research. I said Knights of the Golden Circle. Anyway, it says President Andrew Johnson, who was also the target of a failed assassination, issued the Amnesty Proclamation on May 29th, 1865. One of the stipulations was that the South could join back with the North if they repudiated their war debt. See, all this stuff is all about money. So it's like, yeah, all right, we'll join back with y'all, but you know that debt that y'all got from the war, yeah, you can't bring that with you. You can't bring that with you. That's between y'all and whoever y'all got the money from. Okay. This brought Johnson into the crosshairs of the banksters again. You can go look at the assassination attempts on President Andrew Johnson. And this is funny here. Now check this out. Impeachment proceedings were brought against Johnson, but they would ultimately fail. Now here I asked the question. I said, is it a coincidence that Salmon P. Chase, the previous Treasury Secretary, was now Chief Justices of the Supreme Court? Was this change of position pre-planned? So Salmon P. Chase, who was obviously in favor of a national bank, Chase Bank, yes, this is the predecessor, who was obviously in favor of a national bank, moves from Secretary of Treasury or Treasury Secretary to Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to then try and impeach this dude. So he moves from the money. He moves from the money to the judicial branch to try to impeach the president. It just reminds me of Trump. It just reminds me of Trump so much. They're like, oh, we don't like this guy. He's ruffling too many feathers. Impeach, impeach, impeach. Fail. Right? This is the plot. This is the plot. So, TLDR. Recap. Let's go back. Now you guys know the real reason for the Civil War. Not the bullshit that he taught you in school. 1854, Knights of Golden Circle is established. John Tyler vetoed the rechartering of the National Bank. Lincoln's treasury is pretty much empty. Nathaniel P. Banks warns that the United States Treasury is basically under English control. The Hazard Circular speculates or exposes some of the plot. John R. Elsom exposes exposes a lot actually with his book. We mentioned that earlier. Lightning over. Actually, let's put that on the screen just so you guys can see that. Put this on your screen. Bong bong. You'll see it in just a second. So right here, lightning over the Treasury building. Whoops, sorry. Lightning over the Treasury building, an expose of our banking and currency monstrosity, America's most reprehensible and un-American racket. Yeah. Also, real fast, let's go in here and type in my name, Brian Sharp. You'll see my books here. You see that on the screen? So I've written 3 works so far. I got more coming out. I'm going to co-author one with Nabil. I'm going to co-author one with Legal Mindset on Twitter, on YouTube and Twitter. But these are my 3 books. You can go cop those. Unbreakable Rules of Masculinity, my Twitter marketing book, which is basically my avant-garde work on marketing, period. Whether you use it for Twitter or something else, doesn't matter. But these are my 3 works that are out right now. You can go get those. But yeah, you need to have this on your desk. Lightning over the Treasury building. Great work. Okay, let's go back. So we talked about that. The London banking letters that are exposed in that document. The National Bank Act and what Lincoln said about that. Russia as an ally. We know Russia has abolished slavery in their country, and that's the real reason why, to get them as an ally. And it basically says to the monarchy, look, we need your help. Which, I find that quite interesting. When you look at modern history, right? And I repeat this, I've said this a few times because I remember somebody asked me, they say, hey, do you think that, Rome was one of the most important, times in history? And I was like, no, I don't. I don't think Rome is. I think that the Russian Revolution was the most important because that's when they toppled the last real standing monarchy. At least that wasn't controlled by a central bank, right? Because we know the monarchs in London, England, or whatever, were already had a central bank installed. So it's just interesting to find that Russia was once an ally of our country. They're the reasons. I mean, Russia. You think about the abolition of slavery in America. We got to thank Russia. You got to thank the Russians. That's what you got to thank. Because that's a gesture to the Russians to get them to ally. Because otherwise you got France and England and the South all about to destroy you. And without Russia's help to say, hey, look, Russia like, hey, look, y'all interfere. We're going to squash your ass. And Russia's a powerful, rich entity at the time. Which is kind of funny because, now we have this controversy with Ukraine and Russia and the United States say they're going to do this, da, 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 da. Brian James says Hotep history is American history. Shout out to Brian James. Big facts. We cover real history here. Adam S. said, this is the second time I caught a live stream. I'm hooked. Thank you. Appreciate that, man. I just try to give the real for real, man. The stuff that I never learned, I want to, hand it off to the people. Lisa D, thank you for the super chat. Benjamin was considered a Judas goat. Oh, man. The last Tsar and bloodline were taken out. Yeah. So I'll stay with the chat for about 5 minutes. Let me check my to-do list really fast. Later on tonight, I'll be back. I'll be talking with, at 7 p.m., I'll be having a conversation with Tori Nix. It's going to be you guys don't know who she is, more than likely, but that conversation is going to blow your mind. We're going to talk about sexuality. We're going to talk about America, politics, the black community. Oh my God, the conversation is it's just giving me chills right now. Okay, so I did that task already. Anybody that, cancel. Anybody unaware, I actually have, if I shake it, okay, cool. So I have this very simple, it just looks like this, right? And that's exactly what my to-do list looks like. It's just like, and it stays on my home screen like this. And I think it's called Minimalist. Yeah, Minimalist is the name of the app. And that's what I use for my to-do list. So I always stay on track with my to-do list. It doesn't look like I have much to do left today. I'll probably log off of here, get a chess game in, set up my stream with Tori Nix later. But I'll stay for 5 minutes. And talk with the chat and see what you guys are talking about here. Secession was all about slavery. Well, Dave, did you watch any of this presentation? Didn't notice what I couldn't say. DeBorn, much appreciated, respect. Hey, thank you. Yo, every time somebody sends me a super chat, like, you guys are really like special. Like, you're really special that you guys contribute to me. I'm not somebody who squanders money, and I'm very, very frugal. I'm like Jabari's peoples. I think I've wasted so much money in my 20s. That I'm afraid to waste money now. So I want to say like 99% of the money that I receive and earn throughout the year is reinvested into making this platform better. As you can see, like the graphics get better. I upgrade equipment. My next purchase might be a new camera. I don't know, but I'm always reinvesting in Hotep Nation, or the kids. Like, I'm always spending money on my kids. They got not personal training, but they got training sessions tomorrow because they play European football. So it goes to a great cause. So I really appreciate y'all. He said they were our ally in World War I into the Bolshevik Revolution. This is true. Ooh, Gareth Singleton with a nice factoid that I know to be true. He said mid-19th century, when the United States was still deeply involved in the slave trade, Russia was becoming a safer destination for black immigrants. Right. Ooh, Gavin Neese. You guys are very, very well informed. And I wish I could have included all of these factoids in my book, but I just kind of wanted to go over some of the things that most people didn't know. And that's what's included in here. Like, everything you don't know is in here. If you already know it, if you're based, I didn't include it here. You might be like, why didn't you include this? It's because, it's just too common and all y'all know about that stuff already. You know, like the creature from Jekyll Island, all those factoids, most of that stuff I did not include because I wanted to give you stuff that nobody heard of. Like we did the poll earlier, the hazard circle, and nobody ever heard of that. We include that, right? So if I saw it before, it was familiar to me, I most likely didn't include it unless I thought it was relevant to the entire story. Quan Brinson said, yo, we met when you were Ali Shakur, and it's been great to watch you grow into that Hotep Jesus dude. Much respect, fam. Yeah, I remember you, Quan, of course. You gave me that epic photo shoot, man. Shout out to Quan Brinson. How can I forget you, bro? Come on now. Come on, man. Of course I know who you are. Mid-19th century, when the United States was still deeply involved in... Okay, now I read that one. There's another one I wanted to read. They were our ally in World War I into the Bolshevik Revolution. Here it is. Gavin Neese. Jacob Schiff was monumental in funding the Russian-Japanese War that helped further consolidate the country of Russia into the banksters' control. Yes! Yes! The socialists are so stupid, and I can't wait to write that book. I'm going to completely destroy socialism and capitalism. The Russian Revolution was literally financed by Wall Street. Literally was financed by Wall Street. Why? So people think, oh, they were toppling capitalists and they hated capitalism. No, they wanted to establish central banking and destroy that last monarch of the world, which was Russia and the Tsar. Oh, evil. Dave G says, take a glance at declarations of secession from the Confederate States, plain English. Let's see here. I guess they're arguing about something. For the words and wisdom, head into HN online shop to get gear after work. Oh, my man. Yeah, go get you some, the HN. Get you some of this HN Hotep Nation gear. Paramount. Nico, thank you. He said, I don't know about Lincoln. Sounds like a typical socialist. Those scary corporations we have to centralize all power into my own person. It's the only way. The conversation between capitalism and socialism can become convoluted. It can become very convoluted. A capitalist can sound like a socialist, and a socialist can sound like a capitalist. But that's why context is very important. So, as I say, I can't remember the tweet, so I'll just try to remember the thought process behind it. But communism is a friend of the elite capitalist. You see, after you win the game and you become the richest man in the world, what you want to do is you want to change the rules of the game so nobody else can usurp you, to lower competition. So what the elite capitalists will do is they'll create these systems such as socialism and communism to stop the middle class from rising the ranks, therefore squashing competition. So this is why you'll see a capitalist act like a communist and a communist act like a capitalist. It's very She says, why do you conflate central banking with capitalism? Right. It's very interesting how these two things intertwine. When you say corporations, well, in fact, it is corporations, right? The legal entity of the corporation, the private interests, are in fact the ones who drive communism and capitalism. So you say Lincoln sounds like a socialist, those scary corporations. But that's the trick. That's the trick that socialists play on you, right? And because the socialists don't understand the system and capitalists don't understand the system, the average capitalist doesn't understand these systems. And that's the trick. They get you to say, like, hey, if you talk bad about corporations, you must be a socialist. No, you cannot just make a blanket statement like that. You cannot do that. It's a great point you brought up, Nico. Thank you for the super chat. But you can't do that. You can't just make blanket statements like that. Chad is texting me. Let's see what he's got to say. Hey, Chad's on the screen. He got me on the screen right now. Appreciate you, homie. Shout out to Chad. Happy belated birthday again, sir. But yeah, you just can't make blatant statements like that. This stuff is very circumstantial. Yeah, it's just very circumstantial. In some ways, corporations can be good, right? In some ways, a corporation can be bad. It's like saying, hey, people are bad. No, people can be bad and it can be good. Corporations are run by people. A corporation can be evil. A corporation can be good. So when Lincoln is talking about corporations, he's talking about very specific corporations, saying these corporations. He's not talking about all corporations. He's talking about these corporations. Cassius Cam said corporate feudalism. Zami says, can you define capitalism? I think there's potentially two definitions, and what I'll do is I'll give you my definition and we'll go look up and see what the internet says capitalism is. I would define capitalism as first we have to define what capital is, right? And in order to define capital, we'd have to look at its root word, which is capitale, and capitale, which is Latin. Capitale refers to land and resources, right? So when we talk about capital, in its inception, and we're talking about land and resources, it had nothing to do with this, right? And this is a very important lesson, so I'm glad you asked that. So let's put that on your screen right now. We're going to go to the etymology dictionary. I love to do this for words because we have to understand their root and where they came from. Here we go. So I'll put this on your screen right now. Let me adjust that. So you have capital, which refers to city, right? And here it says capital N2, N.2, 1610s, a person's wealth, from medieval Latin capitale or capital, stock or property, a noun used of neuter of the Latin capitalis, capital, chief, or first, from 1640s as the wealth employed in carrying on particular business, then in a broader sense in a political economy, that part of produce further production. Hold on. Maybe I didn't see it here. Let me see. Oh, let me type in capital definition. See what Google says. All right. This is what Google says. Wealth in the form of money or other assets. Right. All right, let's go back. Let's go back to the etymology dictionary. So stock or property, right, is what they meant it to be, right? So it says the term capital made its first appearance in medieval Latin as an adjective, capitalis or caput, head, modifying the word pars to designate the principal sum of a money loan. The principal part of a loan contrasted with usury, later called interest. The payment made in the lender. This usage, known in classical Latin, had become common by the 13th century and possibly had begun early as 1100 AD. Capital, interest, and rent. Principal fund. Head chief first. Okay, so that's another definition. Maybe it wasn't here where I read that. Could be another source. That's a problem when you read so much. You just have like a million sources in your head. So here it would say stock or property, right? Capital, right? Or where does it say capitalis or capitalis, like Latin? Capital, chief, or first, right? This is the root word. So let's go back to what I would consider capital or capitalism. So capitalism would refer to a system in which there is a intermediary or a third party neutral entity in which people use to trade scarce goods and resources. So this third party could be money, it could be gold, it could be Bitcoin, and that would be considered money, right? So that's what I would consider capitalism. Also, I would have to put an asterisk there and say, as far as capitalism is concerned, we'd have to add the term free market or laissez-faire economics, which means you can't install any rules. You can't say, hey, you can't do this and you can't do that, like such as like communism. For example, saying, hey, you need a license to do this. You need a license to do that. You need a license to cut hair. Like all these things that stop people from climbing the ladder. So that's my definition of capitalism. Let's see what capitalism is according to, which I think is quite similar here. The Google definition says an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. An era of free market capitalism. I don't like the word country here. I think it can be used with a city, but I guess more probably that's how it's used. I don't like that they call it a political system. It's an economic system, definitely. I wouldn't say it's a political system, although we've made it political. And it says it's controlled. Now, this is where it's weird. It says a country's trade. All right, so this definition is way off. A country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit. No. Well, it's kind of right, but it's kind of misleading. Because it's not controlled. Like, there's no control. But, this is about private owners doing things for profit. So I guess it's kind of right and it's kind of not, but it's not control. It's controlled by the private owners, but it's not. What's really controlled is the communist centralization of power. That's what really controls the system. But I think everybody has control over themselves, and that's kind of like what's missing here. But that's what happens when you let socialists write the dictionary. Cassius Cam said voluntarism. Yeah, agorism. He said you need a license to sell lemonade on the street. Right, like that's not capitalism. BV Luminous said we are prisoners to capital. No, we're not prisoners to capital. We're prisoners to our ego, and our ego likes capital. And I always say this, like once upon a time, I hated capitalism. I thought it was an archaic system, and I still think it's a very archaic system to be used for an advanced organism. An advanced organism should be able to operate in a communist manner, meaning working together and not having this need for capital. But when the ego has envy and jealousy, then you need capitalism to balance the ego. That's what capitalism does. Capitalism literally balances the ego. It puts the ego in check, the id in check. That's what it does. It doesn't allow the ego or the id to control the planet. That's what capitalism's supposed to do. That's what capital is supposed to do, right? Because everything's supposed to be free and fair. You set the prices. So we're not prisoners to capital. We are more likely prisoners to our ego, and our ego is the necessity for money. We would be the private owners. It's saying that the government doesn't control the commerce. Jersey Demick in the building. He said we would be the private owners. It's saying that the government doesn't control the commerce. Right. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, rather than by the state, right. I just don't like that. I just don't like the word controlled, because it's more like everybody's in control of themselves. They're not exactly in control of the system, right? We are not in control of the system as capitalism. If anybody doesn't know, me and Jersey Demick, once upon a time, were a rap group. Jersey Demick in Boston. Epic epoch in my life. Learned so much from this dude. He saved my life, actually. There would be no Hotep Jesus without Jersey Demick. Make sure y'all follow him on all platforms. One of the most brilliant minds I've ever met. One of the few minds I respect in this world. But he saved my life. He literally saved my life. I was very, very in a lost place in my life, and he came along and gave me a way where I was definitely lost in my life. I didn't know where I was going to go next, and he gave me a path, and it happened to be rap music. Who would have thought? That's interesting. The term capitalism isn't found in the Constitution or any founding document. When did America become defined as a capitalist country? Yeah, America is definitely not a capitalist country. Cassius Cam said, I'm just trying to monetize my skills without a permit. Word. Communism cannot work because we are animals. Communism is only pure reason we are not. I agree with that. What do I think about patents? Patents, again, are a product of the ego. Same thing. It's almost a system defined by the lack of a system. I like that. 'Tis the season for grifting. It was great on that show. Kwabina said, shout out to Jersey Demick. Word up. Hey, man, I'm going to get out of here, man. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Catch y'all for the next presentation. I'm glad we was able to get this in. I'll see y'all next time. Hotep and build and love y'all.